Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this evening. The bulls maintain the momentum on the Lal Street as markets rise for the 7th straight day. This is the longest winning streak in 20 months. Bond prices rally. Yields fall to the lowest level in over 2 weeks. Crude oil prices attempt to recover from 6-month lows even as concerns over global growth and demand continue to persist. The prospects of the US and Europe reviving the Iran nuclear deal also keeping oil prices under pressure. India's retailers report an 18% growth in July compared to the same month before the pandemic in 2019. Sales of footwear, apparel, personal care products, grocery, jewelry report healthy growth ahead of the festive season. Days after the 5G auctions, telecom companies pay nearly 18,000 crore rupees to the government. Airtel pays more than 8,300 crore rupees. Jio pays more than 7,800 crores. The Union Cabinet approves interest subvention of 1.5% per annum on short-term agri loans of up to 3 lakh rupees. The move is likely to cost the government nearly 35,000 crore rupees over 3 years. It also extends the emergency credit scheme for the hospitality sector by 1 year and increases the limit of guaranteed cover by 50,000 crore rupees. The DMK joins the Aam Aadmi Party and opposes the central government stance in the case against so-called freebies. The Supreme Court observes there is no free lunch, but also adds that welfare schemes should be distinguished from freebies. The case will be heard again on the 22nd of August. BJP drops Nitin Gadkari and Shivraj Singh Chauhan from its parliamentary board in a major organizational rejig. B.S. Yediyurappa, Sarbananda Sonowal, Iqbal Singh Lalpura among 6 new faces inducted into the party's highest decision-making body. The union government claims to have broken the ice with FIFA after the global football governing body suspended India's federation, alleging undue influence from third parties. The government tells the Supreme Court 2 meetings have taken place with FIFA, also adds that it is unwise to disclose the details of the breakthroughs being made. After announcing his intention to buy British football club Manchester United, Elon Musk says it was merely a joke. Manchester United is currently rooted to the bottom of the league after a disastrous start to the new season. Well, let's start India Business Hour with what was another day of gains on the Lal Street. The 7th straight session where the Sensex and the Nifty have ended in the green, and this is the longest winning streak that we've seen in the last 20 months, going all the way back to January of 2021. The Sensex back above the 60,000 mark, and the Nifty is now closer to 18,000. Anuj is here with a wrap of the market action. Anuj, the bulls clearly in charge.
Very strong day once again for the market, with the Nifty getting within a touch of 18,000. In fact, the Sensex has already hit 60,000, and this is after 5 months that the Sensex has managed to reclaim 60,000. The market breadth has been strong all through this run in August, and really the big catalyst for the pace of the move has been the FII buying. All through the month of August, FIIs have been on the buy side. In terms of individual names today, IT led the move today, so names like Tech Mahindra, HCL Tech and Wipro were all higher. Financial names as well also did well. Bajaj Finserv and Bajaj Finance, they have been on fire since the numbers, and both continued to gain ground. HDFC Life was the other one which did well. Then there were other gainers like Bharti Airtel, Hero MotoCorp, Hindustan Unilever. In the F&O space, we had big movers like Z Entertainment, ICICI Lombard and Trent. Well, it's very clear now that 18,000 would happen. Maybe it could happen as early as tomorrow. But is the market prepared for life after that and go to new all-time highs? Going by the recent evidence, it is. But let's see.
Well, new all-time highs, is that on the anvil, Anuj? Many thanks. But in the money market, the rupee gained some strength against the dollar, even as it remains above the 79 mark. The 10-year bond prices rallying in trade, yields cooled off by over 1%. And Lata's here with a snapshot of the money market action. Lata, not just the equity markets, plenty of that mood spilling on to the bond market as well.
Oh, absolutely. Bond prices at their highest level since August 4th, so the yields fall to 7.17. And if they pierce the 7.1516 mark, then actually they go to April lows. There is actually a combination, a riot of good news for the bond market. Start with crude prices, but more importantly, falling inflation numbers both in the United States and in India. The July inflation was the 4th straight month in a row that inflation levels have been falling, both on CPI and on WPI. And with all this good news, there was also a bit of a chatter that maybe it's time Indian bonds are included in global indexes. It's actually a Goldman Sachs report. But the chatter is growing that India was put under watch about a year ago, and by JPM, for instance, and maybe they will take a call in favor of inclusion sometime soon, which will mean some $30 billion of inflows. All this is FY23, 2023, but nevertheless, in the crowd of good news, that also participated. There was also a rally in the rupee market, and that again was because of lower crude prices and FPI flows. The foreign fund flows into equities have now grown into almost $2 billion in the past 2 weeks. And the rally would have been a little more, but for the fact that there was also active dollar buying. And people attributed this to the Max healthcare deal. KKR probably took away the money. This is just speculation. We couldn't confirm it. But we could confirm that there was a lot of dollar buying, which could also have been bunched up buying after a 4-day holiday for the bond and the rupee market. Now there is a chatter in the rupee market that the rally can go all the way for the rupee up to 78.50 if crude prices continue to fall or continue to remain in the 2-digit mark, and FPI flows remain the way they have been in the last 2 weeks.
All right, Lata, many thanks for joining us. Lata was talking about crude prices. Well, they've risen only slightly, attempting to recover from 6-month lows on larger than expected drop in US oil and gasoline inventories. However, prices continue to be under pressure as concerns over global growth and demand persist. The prospects of the US and Europe reviving the Iran nuclear deal also weighing on the commodity market. Now, high inflation has not dampened consumer sentiment as initially feared, at least not yet. Retailers across the country have witnessed healthy sales in the month of July, reporting an 18% growth over the pre-COVID period of July 2019. Shilpa Ranipeta joins us now with more. Shilpa.
Well, there is a visible recovery in retail sales as consumers are now returning to shop at malls and stores as they did before the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, according to the latest data from Retailers Association of India, retail sales in July increased 36% compared to July last year, while they were up 18% over the pre-pandemic levels of July 2019. Now, it's important to note, though, that July last year, the country was still coming out of a severe COVID wave where the sales were still much lower. Now, from a category point of view, quick service restaurant sales were up about 17% over pre-pandemic levels, and this growth is something that QSR players like Jubilant Foods have also been referring to. Now, beauty and personal care sales are still slightly lower compared to pre-pandemic levels at 3%, and the categories that are actually showing most traction are apparel and clothing and footwear sales, both of which were up above over 20% compared to 2019 and nearly 50% more compared to last year. Now, a good recovery is also being seen in food and grocery sales, in consumer durables and electrical sales, and also in jewelry sales. Now, while there may be some sections like personal care that are yet to recover fully and the impact of inflation is still a cause of worry, RAI says that the July numbers and the trend of recovery has retailers upbeat about the upcoming festive season. In fact, we also spoke to companies like Parle Products, V-Mart and Bajaj Electricals, listening to what they had to say about a recovery not just in demand but also in sales.
You've seen a very strong revival in demand in the first 6 weeks. Last quarter, as you rightly said, was flattish as far as volumes are concerned. And whatever growth we saw was primarily driven by price hikes. So growth was, price-led and not really volume-driven.
There is a recovery. There is some recovery, but still we are missing out the pre-COVID numbers. And I think things will get in control. Things are becoming better. People are becoming normal with the situation. There is an anxiety that definitely every household, which is the common household, which earns between 15,000 rupees to 40,000 rupees, has in terms of their savings and their management of their budget in their house. So there is a pain which is there.
Q1, even in volume terms, if I compare to the last 1, 2 or 3 years, has been better. Maybe it's partly because of summer. We've had a good summer, after 2 lockdowns, but even compared to pre-COVID. So I just think slightly better on volumes. On actual value terms, of course, it's better.
Well, that's the mood there as far as retailers are concerned, looking better than 2019 is the indication. In the telecom space, Bharti Airtel, Reliance Jio and Vodafone Idea have paid over 17,000 crore rupees to the telecom department. This towards dues for the 5G spectrum acquired in the recently conducted auctions. Airtel paying over 8,000 crore rupees, clearing installments for 4 years ahead of schedule. Reliance Jio has paid over 7,800 crore rupees and Vodafone Idea has deposited over 1,600 crore rupees as dues to the DoT. On to a money control exclusive. Sources say software major Wipro has decided to pause variable payouts for the April-June quarter for the mid and senior level employees amid significant pressure on margins. Wipro's margins had dropped to 15% in the first quarter from 17% in Q4 of FY22. Wipro's move to hold variable pay and defend margins comes amid fears of a possible recession in the US, the biggest market for Wipro and other Indian IT companies. State Bank of India continues to see demand for home loans despite a marginal hike in rates. SBI Chairman Dinesh Khara says there's been no tapering in demand despite the hike in rates as things currently stand.
I have not seen the demand tapering off, and earlier also my impression is that, if at all interest rate goes up marginally, then perhaps it may not have any significant impact on the demand for the homes. And the kind of trend which you have seen till now, it actually supports this belief which I have.
Well, that's the SBI chief. Shifting focus to India's newest airline, Akasa Air CEO Vinay Dubey mourning the death of airline promoter Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, calling it a deep personal loss. Dubey said Akasa Air is on track to honour Jhunjhunwala's vision to make Akasa Air India's top-notch airline, assuring that the airline's growth is secure. Dubey added that Akasa Air has the financials to induct 72 aircraft over the next 5 years. In an effort to boost credit flow to the agri and MSME sectors, the Cabinet today has given approval to 2 key proposals. All agri loans under 3 lakh rupees will get an interest subvention of 1.5%. For this, the government has provisioned around 35,000 crore rupees for FY23, 24 and 25. The limit for the emergency credit line guarantee scheme has been enhanced by 50,000 crore rupees. The additional amount has been earmarked for hospitality and related sectors. This was an announcement made in the budget today, being notified by the Cabinet. The DMK has now joined the Aam Aadmi Party and opposed the central government's stance in the case against so-called freebies. The Apex Court has observed that there is no free lunch, but also added that welfare schemes should be distinguished from freebies. Ashmit Kumar is standing by with more on what transpired in court today. Ashmit, the welfare versus freebie debate, take us through what the court observed and what the pleas are now stating.
Well, indeed, the Solicitor General appearing for the centre, in fact, began the arguments by pointing out that it would be immature to argue that social welfare can be achieved only through distribution of resources for free, and that seems to have inspired some observations from the Apex Court. The Supreme Court, in fact, observed that there are no free lunches, that as far as welfare schemes are concerned, that needs to be distinguished from freebies, and therefore freebies in turn need to be defined. Supreme Court went on to say that that access to education, in fact, asked this question of the centre as well as the state governments, that free access to education, healthcare, electricity, can all of this be defined as freebies in the first place? In fact, the Supreme Court also made a reference to the Manrega program and said that that is something that, in fact, has helped uplift various millions of people in terms of assuring dignity of living. Further, the Supreme Court went on to say that promises don't alone win elections. There are parties that have often made promises but have not been voted back to power. So the public wisdom is also something to consider. So keeping that in mind, given that the whole host of parties have now come forth and sought to intervene, for instance, DMK has sought to intervene in this matter. DMK, in fact, even took a dig at the centre, pointing out that the tax waivers, the loan waivers given by the centre to various conglomerates, that too should be considered by the Apex Court, and that there can be no straitjacket solution or definition for freebies. Demographics keep changing, the needs and requires and the nature of inequalities which are sought to be addressed also keep changing. So that's the DMK's rationale. But given the whole host of stakeholders here, the Supreme Court has said we will allow time to all the parties to submit their suggestions and their arguments by the weekend. This matter will get taken up on Monday, that's August 22nd, and that's when the Apex Court will again dwell on the question of whether or not an expert panel is required to deliberate on this issue going forward on the critical issue of freebies. Back to you.
With many thanks and more action in court, the union government claims to have broken the ice with FIFA after the global football governing body suspended India's federation, alleging undue influence from third parties. The government has told the Supreme Court that 2 meetings have taken place with FIFA, also adding that it is unwise to disclose the details of the breakthroughs being made. And staying with court orders, Malayalam writer and activist Civic Chandran, who was accused of sexual harassment, has been granted bail after a court in Kerala observed that the sexual offence charge will not stand when the woman was wearing sexually provocative clothes. The court passed its observation after the accused furnished photographs of the complainant along with the bail plea. In a relief to AIADMK leader O. Paneerselvam, the Madras High Court has ruled that the appointment of P. Pellinaswamy as the party's General Secretary is invalid. The court further ordered a status quo, as was the case on June 23rd, which means the party will remain under the joint leadership of Paneerselvam as coordinator and Pellinaswamy as his deputy. There is a new threat to global food security, and it stems from fears that India's rice cultivation may not meet expectations. This comes even as 2 weeks ago, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das emphasized the shortfall in paddy sowing, although buffer stocks are above par. The question, however, remains, what ails India's paddy crop? As part of our series, What's Ailing Rural India, Jude Sunnett travels to India's rice bowl, the Kaveri Delta region, to look for answers.
In Thanjavur, a town in east-central Tamil Nadu, the Kuruvai cultivation is about to end. The Tamil word refers to a short-term harvest over a 4-month period between May and August. During the season, around 3.2 lakh acres of paddy are sown along the banks of the river Kaveri. This year, though, water from the Kaveri did not make it to these fields on time, and the cream of the crop is withering away. On average, the Kuruvai crop sown here in the Kaveri Delta has a life cycle of about 120 days, of which 80 require water in abundance. The problem, though, is that it is precisely this period that sees water required by these crops collect in catchment areas in Karnataka, only after which it is released to Tamil Nadu's agrarian districts. The result is only about 30 days of water supply, often at irregular, unpredictable intervals. This spells disaster for Tamil Nadu's paddy fields, many of which do not have the support of artificial irrigation systems.
In some places, our paddy seedlings were charred because there was not enough water to keep it alive till the harvest. Today, water is being released in the Kaveri because of surplus rainfall in Karnataka, but it's of no use and ends up being let into the sea.
While a herd of cattle grazes on dead paddy crops strewn along these dry lands, one farmer shows me his 2 acres laid to waste. With the Kaveri aqueducts staying dry for 2 months, Rajavel won't sell any paddy this year. And the fact that crop insurance does not cover the Kuruvai harvest because of the risks involved is just salt on his wounds.
We suffered major losses on the Kuruvai harvest last year as well, but we haven't received any insurance payout yet. We have paid up all our premiums and are repaying our crop loans till date.
To get around this problem, some farmers try to delay sowing their paddy. But other factors, like the onset of the northeast monsoons, have ruined their harvest. Then there are rules, like the paddy procurement policy, which mandates that crops brought to procurement centres not have more than 17% moisture. That's impossible once monsoons set in, and so many of the sacks that do make it to the centres are rejected.
An acre can supply us 40 sacks of rice, but today we just about manage 30 bags of damage due to rains and rejected stocks.
Because northeast monsoon comes in the time of harvesting of the Kuruvai. So that time we are facing a lot of problem. We are not able to bring the grains from our field to the direct purchase centers. We are losing our grains also.
Farm associations say the only way forward is if the government intervenes to get Kaveri water released on time. The Supreme Court ruling mandates that 177,000 million cubic feet of Kaveri water be released into Tamil Nadu every season. But Karnataka claims this can't happen unless its own reservoirs fill up first. Harvesters now want lift and tunnel irrigation channels to save the crop.
National Water Dispute Act is very clear. Who are the tail-end area farmers, tail-end area beneficiaries, they should be preferred the first priority. But they are not maintaining.
The Tamil Nadu government has not committed to state-level intervention, but has promised compensation for farmers with crop losses.
As things stand today, the Kuruvai sowing and transplanting process has come to a close. We understand there are issues with insurance payouts for certain farmers and are looking at compensating them through the disaster relief route.
But this still does not address the delay in release of Kaveri water. This season, the area under paddy cultivation in the Kaveri Delta has increased from 3.2 lakh acres to 5.2 lakh acres. But this only means that the stakes are higher than ever before, especially since the uncertainties have not diminished in any fashion. In Thanjavur, Jude Sanath.
Well, up next, Tencent reports its first ever quarterly revenue loss after Chinese regulators crack down on gaming. That and more when we return. Well, it's time now to take a look at the highlights from the startup space. Arundhati joins us now with a roundup. Aru.
Thanks so much for that, Shireen. Here's the top stories from the startup world. Venture debt financing firm Stride Ventures announces the final close of its second Indian fund to raise $200 million, exceeding its target corpus. The second fund will ramp up deployment in late-stage venture capital-backed startups in consumer, financial technology, agriculture technology, B2B commerce and other sectors. Now, e-commerce solution provider Grass, also known as Growth as a Service, raises $40 million in the first close of its Series A fund, led by Galaxy Performance, Integra Partners, Huge Ventures and AJ Capital. A part of the fresh capital has been deployed to acquire 100% of D2C and data specialist Shoptimize and Southeast Asia's marketplace specialist Sell-in-All. Flipkart advertising helped Walmart global ad businesses grow 30% in the second quarter. Walmart's chief financial officer, George David Rainey, said that Flipkart continues to meet their expectations and the team is gearing up for the big billion days. Tencent has posted its first ever quarterly sales fall. The company's revenue declined 3% year-on-year as stricter regulations around gaming in China and a resurgence of COVID-19 in the world's second largest economy hit the technology giant. In fact, the company saw decreased revenue in the second quarter from some of its long-established hit games like PUBG Mobile and Honor of Kings. Now, Facebook promoter Meta to disable new political, electoral and social issue ads a week before voting begins for the US midterm elections in November. Ads that have previously run before the restriction period will be allowed to run during this time. Now, the company said it is also investing in proactive threat detection. After announcing his intention to buy British football club Manchester United, Elon Musk says it was merely a joke. Manchester United is currently rooted to the bottom of the league after a disastrous start to the new season. And with that, it is back to you.
Aru, many thanks. Well, you just have to take Musk tweets with a pinch of salt on most mornings at least. In life and in business, you need to play the cards you're dealt, and that might explain why bridge is a game that continues to bind corporate India together. Yash managed to sneak in on India's C-suite corporates who sat around a table, placed bids on contracts, but with a difference.
It's an unusual Saturday morning for India Inc. Unusual? That's because not every day you get to see a group of India's top corporates coming together in a room, not to discuss business strategies, but to play a game of bridge. Warren Buffett, a bridge buff himself, once said that he wouldn't mind going to the jail if he had 3 more cellmates who played the game bridge. So, what makes this game of bridge so popular amongst financial investors and the corporate world?
My father is a champion, and I would call him a bridge legend, as was my grand uncle. But it was only after him that during COVID that I got interested in the sport. And it was my mother who inspired me. She said, you have to keep the family legacy going. So I took on bridge for 3 reasons. 1, to play with my mother. 2, it's a fantastic game. And 3, and most importantly, it keeps your mind alert as you enter into your older ages.
When I went to IIT Powai, there it was a very popular game in the hostel. So there also I learned some tricks. Mind games is only chess and bridge. Bridge is more popular because if you lose, you can always blame the cards. If you win, it is your good performance. In chess, you can't do it.
But when you're on the table, there is only one unwritten rule. Nobody talks work. But the game of bridge itself is such an elegant balance between work and passion.
I think it's a great mind game, and it helps you to sharpen your own focus. I think it's something which I enjoy playing, although I don't get that much time.
Bridge derives out of logic and math and statistics, and all your business decisions derive out of logic, math and statistics. In bridge, you have to keep on working out the probability and play to your best chance in the probability, and so is it in business.
Back home, industry stalwarts like Deepak Parekh, Shiv Nadar swear by bridge. Well, after all, it's a game which lets them do what they're best at. That is practicing and perfecting winning strategies. For CNBC-TV18, Yash Jain.
Well, on that note, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.